Conservative media done right. You're listening to the SHR Media Network.
I'm Jason Miller. Tonight on the Evan Miller Report, Jihadi John has finally been identified. We'll have the latest report and how the British government tried to recruit Jihadi John and it went horribly wrong. Also on tonight's program, the FCC decides to pass net neutrality rules, making it harder now for internet providers to provide speeds and to spy on you on what you do on the internet and regulate your internet freedoms. We have the report on that. A dad hits back after a false arrest at a school meeting. We'll tell you what he did following his arrest. Plus, tonight on the program, we have an exclusive interview tonight with James O'Keefe of Project Veritas after his expose of Al Sharpton stifling money out of the families of Eric Gardner, Trayvon Martin, and Michael Brown. We look forward to bringing you all that tonight. Plus, Corey Evan.
Thank you as always. That's going to be exciting. Donald Trump running for the Oval Office? Hopefully, if he gets into office, unlikely, he'll tell all the lazy pantses and yoga pants, #you're fired. It's all about the city of marijuana in my side of things in our continuing battle against global socialism. Unemployment applications are up. Blame Sears. Enough said. If you own a front-loading clothes washer, lawsuits across America will get your mold troubles all squeaky clean. And Lindsay Lohan has to clean up her Community Service Act. That's all coming up right now in the Evan Miller Report, your conservative news source.
Live from Southern California, this is the Evan Miller Report. Jason Miller with news and politics, Corey Evan with business and entertainment. This is the Evan Miller Report on SHR Media. Here now, Jason Miller.
And a very good evening on this Thursday, February the 26th, 2015. I'm Jason Miller along with Corey Evan up in Los Angeles this evening.
And it's looking like it's going to be a very rainy weekend again. I'm looking forward to that. Splashing in the puddles, and hopefully that'll put at least a scratch in our little drought.
That government drought, as the government always likes to say.
Yes, exactly. Yeah, they always like to say that. And of course, they're all their water regulations. In fact, they gave me a flyer just a couple of weeks ago saying that now I could get in big trouble if I water my flowers during the day.
Absolutely right. All right, folks, we have a big program for you tonight here on the Evan Miller Report. Of course, our big story is going to be Project Veritas' James O'Keefe coming on to talk about his latest expose of Al Sharpton stifling the money out of Michael Brown, Trayvon Martin, and Eric Gardner. And all of those, of course, recently making big headlines in the news, as you well know. And we'll have the full story with James as he comes and joins us at 8:15 Eastern, 5:15 Pacific, right here on the Evan Miller Report. But first, we start with one of our top stories tonight that's made headlines big time in the last 24 hours. According to British sources, the one terrorist known as Jihadi John has been identified as Mohammed Endwazi. He was known in Syria by his Islamic name, Al-Mari al-Yemi, a sign of his rejection of his British roots. According to two medics, one of who spoke with ITN, he said, quote, "He told me clear-cut he had no intention of returning from London. He said, no way. And if you ask him if he was British, he would say, kind of. He didn't say yes. He was happy where he was. You could tell in a funny way he was at rest." That was part of what was said in an interview with the ITV News' UK editor, Roki Kakru, as he reports tonight on the revelation that the UK government tried recruiting Nwanzi into service for the UK government, and it went horribly wrong. Let's go ahead and go over to Royette's report.
It's hard to believe that the man who became known as Jihadi John, the masked face of international terrorism, was once known as a polite youngster named Mohammed. That's how these men knew him, first in London, then in Syria, where they worked as doctors.
So he came into the hospital where you were working to visit his friends who were sick?
He used to bring stuff like sweets and drinks and ice cream and whatnot to his friends.
He came into the hospital where I was working, and he was visiting his friend who was an injured fighter. He had with him a shopping bag with some fizzy drinks and sweets. I think it was Haribo's.
Tell me what you remember of the man who became known as Jihadi John.
I remember he was quiet, not reserved, but quiet. He had a lot of friends and he was very social. When he was in Syria, he was a very busy man. He was always ready for war, if you like.
He was constantly armed, he was constantly on his phone to senior people in ISIS.
Most fighters are constantly armed, but he constantly had full gear on.
From your information, he has actually been surrounded by the FSA before, by the Free Syrian Army. Tell me about that incident.
He was at a checkpoint, from what I heard, and the people manning the checkpoint stopped him and forced him to get out. From what I understand, they were trying to rob him, and for a man with several weapons pointing at his face, he responded by pulling out his own weapon and pointing it at one of their faces.
The police spoke to both of these British men after they returned from Syria. They claimed their one-time friend had no intention of making that same journey.
He had no intention of returning to London.
He told me clear-cut he had no intention of returning to London. He said no way.
And yet they say the man behind the slaughter is not the man as they knew him.
And that was Rory Cacrew from ITV News in London with the exclusive interview of two medics who have worked in Syria regarding some of Jihadi John, now known as Mohammed Etswar, joining that terrorist organization. And we should note here some other facts about Jihadi John, now known as Mohammed Etswar. He was he was born in Kuwait, raised in West London. Since 6 years old, he had a degree of computer programming from the University of Westminster over in London. And at many times the UK British government tried to recruit him to become part of their operations. And according to what the British government has put out, and this is just new information coming into the newsroom, that they had failed miserably in trying to recruit him, saying he did not want to join the UK government in their fight against terrorism. So, of course, ladies and gentlemen, we'll have much more on this in a few in future reports here on the Evan Miller Report. But the big news tonight: Jihadi John identified tonight. All right, folks, moving on to another big story we're following here back at home. New rules on how the Internet should be governed have been approved by the Federal Communications Commission. In what has been seen as a victory for advocates of net neutrality, the Commission voted in favor of changes proposed by Chairman Tom Wheeler. 3 commissioners voted in favor and 2 against. The U.S. Telecommunications Industry Association said the broadband providers would take immediate legal action over the rule changes. The main changes for broadband providers are as follows. Broadband access being reclassified as telecommunications service, meaning it will be subject to a much heavier regulation. Broadband providers cannot block or speed up connections for a fee. Internet providers cannot strike deals with content firms known as paid prioritization for smoother delivery of traffic to consumers, and interconnection deals where content companies pay broadband providers to connect to their networks will also be regulated. Firms which feel that unjust fees have been levied can complain to the FCC. Each one will be dealt with on a case-by-case basis. all of the rules will also apply to mobile providers as well as fixed line providers. The FCC won't apply some sections of the new rules, including price controls. Ahead of the vote, commissioners heard from a variety of net neutrality advocates, including the chief executive of an online marketplace, Etsy, and a TV drama writer, web founder Sir Tim Berners-Lee, also contributed via video link. So, ladies and gentlemen, what does this mean to you? And I'm speaking this from a newsman's opinion. I believe, ladies and gentlemen, this will start the censorship of the internet, as we very well know it. If the FCC can control the price of internet regulators and control the speed of the internet, they can control what you see online. They can control what you put online. Meaning, I'm speaking of that internet news websites such as Yahoo or such as radio show hosts like myself broadcasting here on SHR Media might be open to censorship or might be put up to a fee for, as what the government would call it, propaganda purposes. You've seen this in dictatorship governments across the world where they censor people for propaganda purposes. And some of our...
Especially in China.
Absolutely. This is where that will be leading, Corey Evan. Corey Evan brings up a very good...
Yeah, I mean, do you people want to have Chinese-style internet here in the U.S.? I don't think so, because not being allowed to think or speak the way we want, that's not what this country was founded on, people. I'm sorry, it's just not. And to you young people, I hope that you start to wake up and realize that the government's not on our side on this one. Oh, no. They want us to away.
Absolutely right. All right, folks, we'll, of course, keep you up to date on the latest coming out of the FCC. Once again, ladies and gentlemen, the internet regulation has been passed by the Federal Communications Commission. Why they have so much power? That's for you to decide, ladies and gentlemen. All right, we're going to go and send it over to Corey Evan now. He has the rest of tonight's national headlines. Corey.
Yes, and I know one guy who has a small chance, but it's still a chance anyway, of maybe getting into office and doing something about that net neutrality, Donald Trump. This time, he says he really means it. According to the Washington Post, the billionaire real estate mogul, who has long amounted to a one-man sideshow in government presidential politics, said in an interview Wednesday that he's more serious than ever about pursuing a run for the White House in 2016. In recent days, Trump said he has hired staffers in key primary states, retained an election attorney, and delayed signing on for another season as host of The Celebrity Apprentice because of his political projects. The moves are the most significant steps yet by Trump toward a bona fide presidential bid, which he considered briefly and flamboyantly in 2011 before deciding against a run. The looming question, however, is whether he can convince Republicans that he's more than a celebrity bomb thrower and instead is sincere in his consideration of a campaign. Trump is slated to appear ahead of former Florida Governor Jeb Friday at the Conservative PAC, an annual gathering of conservatives near Washington. Trump would face steep challenges entering a field that is almost certain to include Bush and Governor Scott Walker of Wisconsin, among a dozen others, including many conservative hopefuls who have built their own networks. His entry would also bring into the race a colorful contender with deep pockets and a national following, attracting media attention and forcing others to respond to his views. Democrats reacted to Trump's plans with eye-rolling. Quote, "You mean there's a chance that he could blow up the entire Republican field and get Celebrity Apprentice off my television? Sign me up," wrote Mo Elliott, a spokesman for the Democratic National Committee, in an email. Many Republicans were also skeptical. As part of his prep, Trump met Monday in New York with Reince Priebus, the chairman of the Republican National Committee, telling him that he was actively mulling a presidential run, according to people familiar with the conversation. Priebus, who will remain neutral in the 2016 primaries, took the meeting because of Trump's status as a prominent donor to the RNC. Aha, so there's a money influence. Ain't that America? For the moment, Trump's consultants will be employed by his personal office, but they're likely to over to a new political group in the coming weeks. Donald F. McGahn, a partner at Jones Day, is counseling the businessman as he takes further steps. And before I send it to break, a newly confident progressive movement delivered a body blow to Chicago Mayor Rahm Emanuel on Tuesday night and is now gearing up for another knockout punch to what it derisively calls the corporate wing of the Democratic Party. This defeat was one for the record books, Jay, and I'm sure that you've got a lot to say about this, so I'll go ahead and send you the link, Jay, and you can look over it. Your thoughts on Mr. Emanuel?
Mr. Emanuel, it should be a very interesting race over there in Chicago, to be honest, and we'll see what happens regarding that mayor's race. It's going to be very
because many of them want to tell him get lost, to say the least.
Absolutely right. All right, folks, it is just approaching 8:15 Eastern, 5:15 Pacific. All right, we'll be speaking with James O'Keefe in just a moment. We're just getting him on the line from one of our mobile studios on the East Coast. But first, we're going to go ahead and play an excerpt from his expose of Al Sharpton. Let's go ahead and play some of that.
Who is Al Sharpton? Baptist minister? Television personality? Charlatan? Race baiter? Project Veritas decided to investigate Sharpton and talk with the people he claims he is trying to help. Their verdict? Sharpton is more sinner than saint.
I'm minding my business. Please just leave me alone. I told you the last time. Please just leave me alone. Put your hand behind you.
Justice for Eric Gardner.
Who's your father?
Yeah, that's my father. I'm his oldest child.
So what, you think Al Sharpton is kind of like a crook in a sense? Like, you think he's like...
Al Sharpton seems to always find a cause, and lately he has shown up at a lot of funerals. In fact, his organization NAN, the National Action Network, often pays for them. It affords him center stage in the circus of a controversy.
We got to be here for the long haul. Michael Brown does not want to be remembered for a riot.
As Ferguson, Missouri heated up in the days after Michael Brown's death, Sharpton met with community leaders. Bishop Calvin Scott was troubled by what he heard.
I frankly was in one of his, more than one, a couple of meetings, 2 or 3 meetings that he was in, and I think to some degree he sort of incites people for the wrong reason. You know, I just, you know, I'm in the gathering. He's got them all fired up, but I just sense that this is not the way you want to go. You know, when you got a fuse that's already lit, you don't need to add no more fire to it.
2 years ago, Sharpton took on the cause of Trayvon Martin. Darrell Parks is a lawyer who represented both the families of Trayvon Martin and Michael Brown. He has known and worked with Sharpton for years.
That Sharpton is all about his money.
And there may be a little truth to that. I'll admit that. That's the only truth, the only thing I'll admit to.
The daughter of Eric Gardner, the religious community in Ferguson, and a prominent lawyer for the Trayvon Martin and Michael Brown families believe they know who the real Al Sharpton is, and they are not alone.
I just try to keep my money away from him.
I don't blame you.
Yeah.
I certainly don't blame you. You got the administrative fees and administrative costs. You got all this cost. By the end of the day, you got maybe 10% of what you donated actually really going and hitting the streets. Sharpton is going to be all right. He's been all right forever. He knows how to make money and get money. And they're shakedown guys.
Yeah.
You know, let's call it what it is.
And that was just part of the 7-minute, 51-second expose that James O'Keefe of Project Veritas has posted online earlier in the week. And we are pleased to be joined by James now from a secret location. We're not going to let his location out tonight because James, you put out the night before you put this out saying that this could be one of the biggest ones in your journalistic career, and you were afraid for your life. Are you still afraid for your life at this time?
Hey, Jason, good to be with you. We're actually at CPAC. We're recruiting videographers this week. MSNBC, the Daily Mail just reported that they're about to fire Al Sharpton. MSNBC is going to fire Al Sharpton.
Okay,
And
well,
our video
so you heard it first. You heard it first here. This is an exclusive here on the Evan Miller Report. So for those of you tuning in, Al Sharpton is now going to be fired now from MSNBC. Why don't you go ahead and get us into more, because you have the exclusive information here. This is just coming new into our newsroom here.
Yeah, that's what the Daily Mail reported, and this is happening as we speak. And, do I fear for my life? On Saturday, I tweeted that out because I did feel a little scared for reasons I really don't want to comment on. Occasionally, not very often, but sometimes I do feel a little afraid, and I expressed that. Frankly, I wish I didn't say that publicly because it got blown up so big. But if you're put in some of the hairy situations and go into some of the uncomfortable places that our people go, you would probably be pretty afraid too.
That's understandable, and in this kind of business, and we've seen this in Los Angeles with the likes of local reporters like David Goldstein out here. Sometimes investigating government officials or just investigating people, period. Sometimes it can be dangerous because people will sometimes hold a grudge because they don't want to be put on the TV or they don't want to be put on the radio after a big investigative report such as yours coming out. And you are letting you have exposed Al Sharpton for truly what he is. He is only out to make money.
Well, that's not what I think. That's what the families and the victims think. That's what they said in our video about him. So it's not about my words. It's about the words of the families, and the picture's worth 1,000 words, and you can see the anguish and the pain in the face of Erica Garner when you watch the video. That's what you see and witness. So it's the video kind of speaks for itself in this instance.
I understand. I understand, James, and I was more saying that your expose of interviewing the families of Trayvon Martin, Eric Gardner, and Michael Brown, you were one of those pieces. You were you provided the service and the opportunity for these people to speak out and really say how they feel.
Yeah, well, Veritas is usually stinging. In this case, it would have been Sharpton, but we weren't stinging Sharpton. We were revealing how his allies felt. And one of the things that we tell people the truth, that they will make the right call. And if people want to believe the press release written by National Action Network, which now basically says that Erica Garner and them are going to partner together, if they want to believe that, if they want to, then they can believe that, or they can believe their own ears and eyes and when they see the video. But ultimately, the story is pretty self-explanatory, and people can make their own minds when they see and hear what those people are saying.
Now, I want to bring up Eric Gardner because you interviewed the family of Eric Gardner. Now, in your video, I want to bring up the part in the video. This we're not able to broadcast on the air because of time constraints today, but people can see this fully online, and we have the link up on our Facebook page, facebook.com/The Evan Miller Report, for those who want to view your full expose of Al Sharpton. But I want to ask a little bit about how Eric Gardner's family said that Al Sharpton paid for Mr. Gardner's funeral, but then the local representative of Sharpton was coming up to the family and acting like, okay, we paid for the funeral, we expect so much out of you now, we expect you to do these things to be able to pay for our services that we provide.
Yeah, she said that he paid for the funeral, and he, this is the agent of Al Sharpton, the one of the lieutenants of Al Sharpton's National Action Network, Cynthia Davis. Erica said that Cynthia Davis paid for her funeral, and now Erica owes her, and she has to put logos of Al Sharpton's organization on the various pamphlets and materials she's handing out when it's not about their organization, it's about her father. So she's talking about that, and she doubled down in the New York Post, front page story in the New York Post. She doubled down and said, "Yeah, it's true. Everything I said is true." So, like I said, it's them talking about it, not me expressing my opinion.
Yeah, and of course we have the mainstream press, the likes of MSNBC, which reported, and newspapers, the New York Post, are reporting that now all these people are recanting what they said over in your videos. Has there been any truth to that, or is just that more mainstream gunfire in trying to put a mirage over your expose?
Well, we had one person we talked to said on the undercover portion, we did not release this bit, but he feared of what would happen to him if he were to be honest and candid about what his thoughts were on Al Sharpton. So I think that might be a role. Is Al Sharpton intimidating them? But like I said, people can make their own minds. Do they want to believe the heartfelt statements made by Erica Gardner on the videotape, or are they going to believe a press release that was written in coordination between Al Sharpton's group and Erica Gardner after the story came out? You decide.
Absolutely, and this is not all that Al Sharpton has had to put up with this week. Al Sharpton's currently in a lawsuit with Comcast, and this will further make that case with this lawsuit. Obviously, this lawsuit has nothing to do with this recent expose that you put out, but it only adds that Al Sharpton is not a good guy to have dealings with.
Yeah, and I think nothing is more powerful than the victims' families, African American leaders. We had a pastor in St. Louis even said that he's trying to incite violence, incite hatred when he should be bringing people together. So there's a sort of chorus of voices that are talking about what he's done.
Now, is there anything in this recent expose that you have learned that you want to tell people here on the air tonight that you were not able to broadcast in that video that you have posted?
Or at least part 2 probably tomorrow. So I don't want to. That I tried confronting Al Sharpton at his office last Saturday, and
And this is the first time that you are telling us this. You haven't told anyone else, but you are releasing now a part 2, according to what you're telling us on this. So this is a follow-up to your first video that you put out on, I believe it was Tuesday.
Yes.
Okay, well, ladies and gentlemen,
right.
You heard it here first on the Evan Miller Report. We want to reiterate at the top of the broadcast, if you have not heard, according to the Daily Mail, and this is coming from James O'Keefe's mouth, right to our audience tonight, that Al Sharpton has now been fired from MSNBC due to the recent expose of Mr. Sharpton by James O'Keefe regarding what he has been doing in his private life regarding helping out the African American community and helping out and demanding money and extorting money out of the likes of Eric Gardner, Michael Brown, and Trayvon Martin. So you heard it here first, ladies and gentlemen. Now, James, when can we expect this part 2 to be put out?
It's probably going to be put out tomorrow morning. We're not quite sure. We're still finishing the production of it, so we shall see.
Absolutely. Now, we understood your website took a big hit when you put out the first video. Just a lot of people wanted to see this. Is your website server ready this time to be able to take the big load of people that is going to be viewing
We're
this?
having some website technical difficulties, and we're looking into it. We hope so. That's one of the things that has delayed us up to this point.
Okay, so you're just making sure that your server is ready at this time, and obviously, James, anytime you have a big story coming out like this, it is obviously a big deal. People want to view this; they want to see the information, and we have millions of people here in the United States and around the world who look at your exposés from time to time. Where can people go see the current expose you put out, and where can people go see part 2 when you release it tomorrow? What's your website?
ProjectVeritas.com. It's VERITAS. ProjectVeritas.com.
Okay, and if there is other people who are listening to this broadcast, and I'm speaking to the African American community, if there is other people who have had dealings with Sharpton similar to what Trayvon Martin, Michael Brown, or Eric Gardner have dealt with, how can they contact you?
Send us a tip, an anonymous tip on our website, and we will get in touch with you. ProjectVeritas.com.
All right. That sounds great. James, thank you so much for coming on and explaining further your expose of Al Sharpton. We certainly appreciate it.
Thank you so much, sir. Thank you.
All right, folks. That was James O'Keefe, the head of Project Veritas. And once again, just to reiterate, breaking news, and you heard it here on the SHR Media Networks, according to James O'Keefe tonight, that Al Sharpton has now been fired from MSNBC. I'm Jason Miller. You're listening to the Evan Miller Report, and we will be right back after these messages, right here on the Evan Miller Report.
Conservative media done right. You're listening to the SHR Media Network.
How you doing? John Grant here. When I'm not slaving over a hot microphone on the 405radio.com Saturdays at 10 a.m. Eastern, I check out Sean and Clint here at Sackheads Radio. We all appreciate the best political bloggers, writers, and commentators. We either get them on our shows or we make fun of them, as it should be. So check us out live Saturdays at 10 a.m. Eastern or forever on the podcasts on the 405radio.com.
This is Tammy Jackson, inviting you to join me on the Tammy Jackson Show every Tuesday night at 7 p.m. Pacific on the 405radio.com. Put down that remote and tune into the show that covers politics, guns and the Second Amendment, religious liberties, sanctity of life, the military, and more. I host newsworthy guests and work hard to be a conservative radio show that's not like all the others. So save Tuesday nights at 7 p.m. Pacific for me, Tammy Jackson, on the 405media.com.
Hello, I'm Paul, a student at Hillsdale College. Here is my professor, Dr. Larry Arnn, on the separation of church and state.
America's founders believed in the separation of church and state, in that the country was not to have an official religion or an official sect. But that did not mean that government was to be hostile to religion, or even indifferent to religion, as many today argue. In fact, America's founding document, the Declaration of Independence, includes both a reference to God as the author of the laws of nature and a confident assertion that human beings are endowed by their Creator with certain inalienable rights. Far from being hostile or indifferent to religion, America's founders understood the theology of the Declaration to be an essential part of the education of citizens.
This Constitution Minute was brought to you by Hillsdale College. To join the national conversation on the Constitution, go to constitutionminute.org.
Hi, this is Rooster from Outcry Radio. Catch me here on Blog Talk Radio every Saturday night at 11 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Or follow my blog. Now, back to the Sackheads.
Conservative media done right. You're listening to the SHR Media Network.
Radio.
In a moment, cancer changed our lives forever.
We were told nothing could be done to enjoy these final moments together.
But in that moment, when all seemed lost,
St. Jude Children's Research Hospital gave us hope.
Because at this moment, St. Jude Children's Research Hospital is saving lives with pioneering research and care. We're changing the way the world treats childhood cancer by sharing our discoveries with doctors and scientists everywhere.
And we'll never have to pay St. Jude for anything, ever.
At this moment, she wants to be in her own bed.
I want to be back at school with my friends. I want to be outside playing.
Please take a moment and join St. Jude in finding cures and saving children. Visit stjude.org.
This is an Evan Miller special report.
And welcome back to the Evan Miller Report. I'm Jason Miller, and for those of you who have just missed our interview with James O'Keefe, we will be putting that up right after our program via the iHeartRadio app, YouTube.com, and Spreaker. But James O'Keefe just breaking on our program tonight that Al Sharpton has been fired from MSNBC, this according to the Daily Mail. Stay with the Evan Miller Report for more on this story as we report tonight. And Corey, my goodness, look at this. We knew Al Sharpton was in some trouble, but when MSNBC fires Al Sharpton, you know that James O'Keefe did his job.
Great work, Mr. O'Keefe. And as I used to sing in the season 1 of the Evan Miller Report, Al Sharpton really is crying his eyes out now.
Absolutely right. All right, folks. We have more to get to here on the broadcast, and of course, if we receive anything more regarding the firing of Al Sharpton, we of course will bring it to you on the rest of the report tonight. In the meantime,
why wouldn't we?
Of course. This we have the story exclusively here on SHR Media, so we are glad to be able to provide the first reports of Al Sharpton being fired from MSNBC tonight. All right, we're going to go ahead and send it over to Corey now, and he has some more news tonight. Corey.
May I go into business? Can I hear that closing bell, please?
You may hear that closing bell. Closing bell, can we hear you?
There we go. The Dow is down 10 points at 18,214. The NASDAQ bucking the trend to end up 20 points at 49.87. And the S&P 500 down 3 points at 21.10. More Americans saw unemployment aid last week, so the number of applications was still consistent with steady hiring, quote unquote. This from Fox News. The Labor Department said Thursday that weekly applications rose 31,000 to a seasonally adjusted 313,000. That's the most in 6 weeks. The 4-week average, a less volatile measure, increased 11,005 to 294,005. Employers added more than 1 million jobs from November through January, the best 3-month pace since 1997, and more than 3.2 million jobs have been created in the past year. That has been said to help lower the unemployment rate to 5.7% in January from 6.6% at 12 months before that. The strong job gains are showing some signs of finally lifting paychecks for more workers, they say. Average hourly pay rose 0.5% in January, the most in 6 years, the Labor Department said earlier this month. While economists cautioned against reading too much into 1 month's future, it suggested employers may finally feel the need to raise wages to attract new workers and keep the ones they have. Taking a cue from Walmart, are you guys? Next up from Reuters, Standard Chartered said former J.P. Morgan investment bank boss Bill Winters will take over as chief executive in June, replacing Peter Stans in a major management overhaul following 2 years of problems. This from Reuters. Investors had been pushing for a change at the helm of the Asia-focused bank, citing strategic, governance, and operational mistakes, and saying Sands had been slow to address troubles, including a U.S. fine for breaking sanctions to losses on commodities. Winters is currently CEO of the Renshaw Bay hedge fund he founded and is one of the most respected bankers in the industry. He has wide experience of investment banking and regulatory issues. Standard Chartered shares jumped 5% on the news of the appointment before trimming gains amid concerns the bank is now more likely to launch a rights issue to address concerns about its capital strength. By 12:44 gross GMT,
I misread that. Standard Chartered shares were up 3% at 956 pence. They've fallen 30% since the start of 2013. Analysts said there could be more changes in management, although Peace said Mike Reeves, the deputy CEO and head of the wholesale bank, was staying in his role. Winters is originally from New York, but has dual U.S. and U.K. citizenship, will join Standard Chartered's board in May and take over from Sands the following month. He will be based in London, where he has lived for the past 22 years. And Sears said it is proceeding with plans to split off 200 to 300 stores into separately owned real estate company as the retail giant continues to attempt to turn around its flailing business. This from USA Today Money. The company previously announced discussions of a spin-off plan for some of its real estate in November. It hopes to separate the business by May or June. Sears said Thursday as part of its fourth quarter earnings announcement that the move would give Sears proceeds of about $2 billion. The announcement comes with news of slight improvement in the business. Sears narrowed its losses in the fourth quarter, reporting a loss of $159 million or $1.50 a share. That's down from a loss of $358 million or $3.37 a share in the year-ago quarter. But store closures, divesting from most of its Canadian operations, and spinning off the Land's End business sent sales down by $2.5 billion. Sales fell to $8.1 billion from the $10.6 billion in quarter four of 2013. This is the company's fourth year of profit and revenue loss. The company shifted in recent years to a loyalty program strategy to entice shoppers. Sales to members of its rewards program, Shop Your Way, accounted for 72% of all sales for the quarter. Sears is also hoping to shift customers who shopped at its closed stores to other stores or its website. The company closed about 234 underperforming stores last year, primarily from the Kmart brand, which I saw one of, actually two, because Banning, California closed, then Hemet, California closed, and I'm sure we'll see more this year in the area. The company still has more than 1,700 Sears and Kmart stores. Sales, excluding the opening and closing stores, were down 4.4%, including a 2% decline at Kmart and a 7% decline at Sears. Sears said Thursday that it had about $800 million available under its credit facility and $250 million in cash at quarter's end. CFO Rob Schreising said in a statement that the actions it took in 2014, such as store closures and inventory reduction, generated $2.3 billion in liquidity. Sears also announced that it's amending and extending a $400 million short-term loan that it took out in September from a hedge fund run by Eddie Lampert, the CEO, and the company said it will now repay on $200 million of the loan on Monday. The remainder of the loan was extended until June 1st or until the company proceeds from the potential REIT transaction, whichever is soonest. Total long-term debt rose to $3.2 billion from $2.9 billion a year earlier, so it's not all rosy over at Sears, and I'm sure Jay wouldn't set foot in the Sears store at the Escondido Mall now, would he?
Nah, probably not.
Yeah, you're more of a Bloomingdale's. No, wait, not Bloomingdale's. It's Nordstrom that's at that mall, isn't it?
I dare not say.
Don't want to endorse any one company, but I'm just saying he's more of a JCPenney guy than a Sears guy. And on that note, but yeah, that's a good thing, Jay, because as you know, Sears is not doing well.
Absolutely. And ladies and gentlemen, we do have that article that James O'Keefe referred to about Al Sharpton being fired from MSNBC, now available on our Facebook page, facebook.com/The Evan Miller Report. And we're going to go ahead and post this up on our Twitter page here on the Evan Miller Report. You can you can go to our Twitter page as well at EM Radio Report. So, ladies and gentlemen, MSNBC to fire Al Sharpton tonight. And Corey, this is real big news. And let's go ahead and read the latest here real quick on this. According to the Daily Mail, MSNBC is set to pull the plug on Al Sharpton in a last-ditch attempt to revive their dwindling audience numbers. The Liberal Anchor's nightly Politics Nation show is to be shelved by broadcasting bosses as they make drastic changes in the hope of clawing back viewers. Company president Phil Griffin is believed to be placing his faith in a swing from the left in their congressional coverage, insisting that the station's Republican bashing glory days are now firmly in the past. An MSNBC source has told the Daily Beast going left was a brilliant strategy while it lasted and made hundreds of millions of dollars for Comcast, who now owns NBC Universal, but it doesn't work anymore. The goal is to move away from the left-wing TV. Sharpton's removal, which may see his politics show rehorned to a weakened slot, will be music to the ears of conservatives and what the Daily Mail is calling right-wingers, often agitated by the 60-year-old's opposition stance. It follows the exit of liberal firebrand Keith Olbermann, who left to join ESPN.
But of course, in my view, Jay, it's always going to be Piers Morgan that is the key piece of evidence as to why going left-wing in the media didn't work out. Because, as you know, last year, his ratings went from initially surpassing Larry King's ratings to just going way down to the bottom of the barrel before CNN decided, get out of here, Piers. Sorry, I just had to make a Piers Morgan comment.
Absolutely. And the article further states James O'Keefe's video from expose that he put on Project Veritas, and as James reported earlier, that now that Al Sharpton has been fired, and of course we got the full article now from the Daily Mail, and I can tell you, ladies and gentlemen, when it comes to searching for news stories online, sometimes stories can be very tough to search up. This one, not an easy one to find here, but we did find it, and now it's available here at EM Radio Report and on Facebook at facebook.com/The Evan Miller Report. And this is going to be a big story for the next couple days, Corey, right here. I can't state enough how big this story is.
Yes, even WikiLeaks is jealous.
Wow, absolutely. All right, folks, we're almost out of time tonight, so we're going to go ahead and go right over to Corey, and he has tonight's Lawsuits Across America.
Good idea.
And now it's time for Lawsuits Across America. The cases are real. All rise for the Honorable Corey Evans.
Thank you. As always, ladies and gentlemen, please be seated and come to order. Lawsuits Across America is now in session, and this first item on the docket takes us right back to our continuing items against global socialism. A new lawsuit challenges medical marijuana licensing in Illinois, claiming that the state failed to follow its own requirements for deciding who would get to grow and sell the drug. This, according to the Chicago Tribune. In response, Governor Bruce Rauner's administration agreed that the evaluation process started by former Governor Pat Quinn's office was flawed and pledged to cooperate with any court review of the program. The suit, filed by PM Prescription LLC of Chicago, seeks a court order to prevent the state from issuing a final cultivation center license to competitor Cresco Labs, to require the state to restore the applications for court approval, or to declare PM Prescriptions the high scorer in District 21 in Kankakee. The suit was filed Tuesday in Cook County and names the defendant as Philip Nelson, acting director of the State Department of Agriculture, which oversees the licensing of marijuana grow centers. On February 2nd, the Rauner administration named Cresco Labs as the winner of 3 of 21 cultivation center licenses statewide. Since then, Cresco has been seeking up to $30 million from investors, according to documents filed with the suit, even though all investors were to be identified ahead of time as part of each application. The suit claims that Cresco scored lower than PM Prescriptions, but ended up with a higher score after a Cresco representative met with Quinn despite a ban on regulators meeting with applicants during the selection process. A spokesman for the former governor released a statement that said Quinn, quote, did not have any meetings with any medical marijuana applicants to discuss their licensing application. Yeah, right. Like I'd buy that one. Any rate, moving on to the Daily Pennsylvanian, which has this one out of Philadelphia. While teachers, unions, and school districts are often at odds, and LA Unified here in California is a clear illustration of that, a recent lawsuit has put the School District of Philadelphia and the Philadelphia Federation of Teachers on the same side. The lawsuit, filed the morning of February 25th, claims that Philadelphia's school system has been haunted by ghost teachers due to a contract stipulation that lets teachers work for the union while remaining on the district's payroll. The Fairness Center, a nonprofit, sued the PFT and School District Common Pleas Court February 25th over the practice of stocking union positions with teachers funded by taxpayer dollars. That's annoying, I think. And, of course, I'm going to keep an eye on this. And apparently the so-called ghost teachers leave vacancies in the classroom, according to the lawsuit. The Fairness Center sued on behalf of its client, Americans for Fair Treatment, a nonprofit that empowers Americans to receive fair treatment from government unions, according to its website. Define fair treatment. I mean, unions, they don't do nothing for anyone. Not anymore. And they help tackle dirty laundry, use less energy, less water, and less detergent. But front-loading washing machines may be triggering more service calls, more trouble, and more lawsuits than manufacturers ever expected. According to CBS Pittsburgh, Michael Vogler said his machine was not what he had hoped for when he bought a front-loading washing machine. Vogler says he noticed his allergies worsening, his clothes smelling, and he found a streak of mold on one of his clean shirts. That's when he discovered what was hidden inside the front seal of his machine, what he described as black and slimy. This is stained and permeated in the rubber, he said. Class action suits have been filed against several top washing machine makers, Electrolux, Frigidaire, Sears. Ooh, Sears is in there. No wonder they're losing money. Kenmore, LG, Bosch, and Whirlpool are in the pool. The lawsuit claimed the machines are defective in their designs and airtight seals, creating breeding grounds for slimy, stinky black bacteria, also known as biofilm. Class action suits have been filed, and the attorneys for the plaintiffs also are arguing that when customers complain, manufacturers often place the blame on them for not cleaning their machine. In court documents, Whirlpool is said to have marketed a product called Afresh, to combat mold. The product, according to the documents, could generate an estimated $195 million in sales revenue, even though the company said it had few consumer complaints about bacteria. Fogler said when he complained to Frigidaire, he was told to buy a $200 part for it. And if you're having problems with your machine, if you're dealing with this item, here are a few steps you can take. You can run bleach through the machine after several washes. You can use bleach wipes to clean out that rubber ring after you use the machine. And you can leave the door open when the machine is not in use. I personally do not own a front-loading machine, but I'd be doing that first if I had one, wouldn't you, Jake?
Certainly would, Corey. Certainly would. Great advice, as always. Corey Evan with tonight's Lawsuits Across America and a little consumer watchdog tonight. We thank him very much.
Yes. You're welcome, Jay. And that is case dismissed for today's lawsuit.
All right. Thank you very much on that. And before I send it over to Corey, and he has tonight's entertainment report in just a moment, new follow-up to a story we brought you earlier, last year. I'm speaking earlier when we're in the new year. Beg your pardon. A New Hampshire man who was handcuffed and arrested for speaking his mind at a local school board meeting last year has filed a lawsuit against the police, alleging violations of his civil rights. The criminal charges against William Bayer of Guilford, New Hampshire, were tossed out of court by Belknap Judge James Carroll in December. Then acting police chief James Leach, who made the arrest, could have dropped the charges but elected not to. Said Bayer, who was arrested while addressing the board about a reading assignment given to his daughter's 9th grade class that includes sexually explicit materials. Lieutenant Leach and police chief Anthony Burby both took an oath to support, protect, and defend the Constitution of the United States, Baer told WorldNet Daily. Lieutenant Leach violated my rights when he silenced and arrested me, and Chief Burby continued to violate my rights by prosecuting me for nearly 7 months. These men abuse their authority and their positions under the color of the law. The law enforcers become the lawbreakers and must be held account. Citizens exercising their First Amendment rights have been roughed up by police not just in New Hampshire in recent years. Last year, there was another case of Eddie Overvolt, a 76-year-old military veteran, who was arrested at Greene County, Tennessee Board of Commissions meeting because he stood up and requested that the board members speak louder so the audience could hear. Just last week, another man, Jeffrey Clay, was arrested at Alton, New Hampshire City Council meeting for asking his elected leaders to resign to poor actions and poor decisions, according to the Manchester Union leader. All right, folks, it's time for the entertainment report, and for that, we send it over to Corey Evan.
Yeah, I may have dismissed lawsuits across America, but one case is not dismissed in my entertainment news, and that would be Lindsay Lohan. An LA court, according to NME News, has ordered her to redo 125 hours of community service after deciding that the activities the actress performed during her time in London last year didn't count. The Mean Girls actress was ordered to perform 240 hours in 2013 as part of a plea deal brokered in the wake of allegations of reckless driving and lying to police. While in London last year, starring in the West End revival of David Mamet's play Speed the Plow, the actress became involved with a charity group called Community Service Volunteers and spent time working with teens in taxis. Lohan sought to claim these hours of community service, but prosecutors alleged that she wants to receive credit for hosting a fundraiser event for CSC bosses, allowing teenagers to shadow her and even hold meet-and-greet events. Superior Court Judge Mark Young decided to annul any credits Lohan received during her time in London. The BBC reports and the actress will be assigned a new community service at a hearing on March 12th. Then she'll have until May 28th to complete the outstanding hours. Good luck to you, Miss Lohan. Kelly Osbourne, who apparently let the group know it when it was being taped that she is a friend of Zendaya's, but didn't stop Rancic from making her crack, now seems happy that Rancic has apologized and Zendaya has accepted the apology via Twitter. Just an update on a story I brought to you earlier this week. Congratulations, ladies. Now it's time to go have some ice cream and enjoy the fact that you've all made up and you're friends again. And now, Jay, we can finally go.
I love it when Corey can bring the ladies together.
Yes, absolutely. That's what I do here at the Evan Miller Report. I'm a ladies kind of man. And Jay.
Be careful where you say that. Oh, wait, you just said it on the air. Be careful, man. You're on the air.
Yeah, so I make myself look dumb sometimes, but it's all in good fun. And speaking of fun, Jay, you got your bag ready for Duckburg? Because Disney Channel on Wednesday announced that they plan to resurrect DuckTales. That's where you're supposed to go. Yeah, there you go. You're just a few seconds behind. But at any rate, the beloved cartoon about Scrooge McDuck and his trio of grandnephews that originally aired back in the late 80s and early 90s is back. And it's going to premiere in 2017, they say, on Disney XD. And before you ask, yes, there are other characters also set to return, including Butler Duckworth, inventor Gyro Gearloose, pilot Launchback Mitch Quack, Scrooge's arch enemy Flintheart Glomgold, and a lot of the villains are going to be back, as well as Nanny Mrs. Beakley, and Webby. DuckTales, a 4-time Emmy winner, has also spawned a film, as well as a lot of merchandise and a YouTube video, which I'm sure Jay has already had sent to him no less than 40 times this week. Am I right or am I right, Jay?
You're certainly right on with that. All right. Corey Evan with the Entertainment Report. Thank you very much for that. And ladies and gentlemen, that does it for this special edition of the Evan Miller Report tonight. I'll be back in about 5 minutes' time on the Exceptional Conservative Show to report on more on Al Sharpton being fired from MSNBC. Once again, our top story tonight.
You're going to be rubbing it in his face all night, aren't you, Jay?
Oh, you bet. This is a good night for conservative media done right here at the SHR Media Network.
And I applaud you on that note.
And this is the way we do it here, ladies and gentlemen. So, for Corey Evan, I'm Jason Miller, and I will talk to you in a couple of minutes on the Exceptional Conservative Show, which comes up next here on the SHR Media Networks. Good night, everybody, and we'll talk to you tomorrow, and I will see you in 5 minutes on the Exceptional Conservative Show. Good night, everybody.
Conservative media done right. You're listening to the SHR Media Network.